Right now, alarm bells are ringing loudly in China. President Xi Jinping has just witnessed the military force he spent decades building face one of the harshest wake-up calls imaginable. This was something she never expected to see. When the United States launched its bombing campaign against Iran, she initially believed China was safely removed from the situation. But what he has observed since then has been deeply unsettling. The conflict has revealed something that could reshape his calculations moving forward. China may not actually be ready. It may not be ready for the kind of overwhelming military power the United States has just demonstrated it can unleash. And that realization is especially worrying for Xi, because many analysts believe he intends to be prepared to launch an invasion of Taiwan by the year 2027. But China's lack of readiness doesn't end with military capability. The country may also be unprepared for the massive geopolitical consequences it would face if it ever went to war with the United States. We'll examine the geopolitical side of this later in the video. For now, though, we're focusing on the military lessons from the short war with Iran, and those lessons are significant enough to make Xi extremely uneasy. The first and perhaps most important lesson is that the United States has demonstrated it can effectively blind an entire country before launching its attacks. That is exactly what happened in Iran. Intelligence analyst and cybersecurity specialist Ryan Macbeth explained in a video posted to YouTube that the United States coordinated operations across multiple domains, air, space, and cyber, to disrupt Iran's sensor networks along with its command and control systems. As a result, Iran's ability to see what was happening, coordinate its forces, or organize a meaningful response was dramatically reduced. In fact, during the opening hours of the joint U.S. and Israeli strikes against Iran, the defining feature of the operation was not the bombs or missiles themselves. Instead, the initial phase focused on a carefully orchestrated effort to shut down Iran's systems. By disabling those systems first, the United States significantly improved its chances of locating and destroying its targets, while leaving Iran unable to react in time. According to Lawfare Media, these cyber operations were so effective that they even played a role in the early elimination of Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei. By infiltrating communications and intelligence channels, the United States and Israel were able to determine precisely when Khamenei would be meeting with senior officials. That information allowed them to time a strike with devastating precision. Other intelligence and cyber operations ensured that large sections of Iran's air defense network were already neutralized before American bombers and fighter jets ever entered the battle space. By the time Iran was even able to begin thinking about a response, thousands of targets had already been destroyed and the country had been forced onto the defensive. We'll return shortly to the sheer scale of America's attack. But even before that, the act of shutting down Iran's eyes and ears demonstrated something extremely important to China. It showed exactly what the United States would likely try to do if a war ever broke out between the two powers. And this matters not only because of the destructive power of American strikes. It also creates a massive problem for any country trying to respond. As Macbeth explains, imagine you are part of a crew operating an anti-ship missile battery. If nobody from command is communicating with you, if nobody is telling you when to fire or where to aim, you simply cannot launch your missile. That was the strategic effect the United States achieved in Iran. China may possess one of the most formidable missile arsenals in the world. According to Newsweek, the country has roughly 550 launchers and around 400 intercontinental ballistic missiles. But none of that firepower matters if command and control networks are disrupted so thoroughly that missile operators cannot communicate with their leadership. For Xi, this presents a troubling scenario in any potential confrontation with the United States. And the situation becomes even more complicated when Taiwan, China's most likely military target, is brought into the picture. As Macbeth explains, China's strategy for Taiwan is not primarily focused on amphibious landings by soldiers storming beaches, although such operations would probably occur. Instead, the core of the plan involves overwhelming Taiwan with massive missile bombardments. For that strategy to succeed, China's command and control systems must function perfectly. But the U.S. campaign in Iran has shown that those systems can potentially be disabled before the first missiles are even launched. For Xi, that realization alone represents a harsh wake-up call. But that's only the first problem. The second major issue revealed by the U.S. campaign in Iran is the sheer scale of American military strikes, what many analysts describe as shock and awe on an entirely new level. Once Iran's ability to see and coordinate had been crippled, the United States moved quickly to overwhelm the country's military infrastructure. The operation demonstrated that the U.S. can scale up its attacks immediately, striking roughly 1,000 targets on the very first day of combat. And the intensity of the campaign didn't stop there. Within about a week, Breaking Defense reported that the United States had carried out more than 3,000 strikes across Iran. During those operations, American forces also targeted 43 Iranian naval vessels. Beyond the command and control facilities already mentioned, the United States struck drone manufacturing centers, missile production facilities, and launch sites. The results were devastating. Some sources report that Iran's drone launches dropped by about 83%, while its ballistic missile attacks decreased by roughly 90% compared to the first attempts Iran made to respond. The sheer scale of this campaign sends a powerful message to any country that might consider confronting the United States in the future. American military strikes can occur at a scale that many people once believed was impossible. Macbeth described it in striking terms. Instead of the traditional pattern seen in conflicts like Operation Desert Storm, where a massive buildup is followed by waves of attacks, he says the United States now delivers something closer to 1,000 tornadoes on the first night. And the reason this is possible is the extraordinary level of coordination between different branches of the American military. Although the United States is now using older, non-stealth bombers as part of its heavy bombardment of Iran, the opening hours of the conflict featured the deployment of the stealthy B-2 Spirit bomber. These aircraft carried out precision strikes while flying virtually undetected by Iran's air defense systems. That alone is impressive. But what may have truly caught Xi's attention was the incredible distance involved in these operations. American B-52 Stratofortress bombers reportedly completed 37-hour round-trip missions from the continental United States to Iran in order to strike several targets during the opening phase of the campaign. These extremely long flights were made possible by the United States' massive fleet of aerial refueling tankers, which kept the bombers supplied with fuel while they remained airborne. Think about what that means from Xi's perspective. American pilots are trained to fly missions lasting nearly a day and a half without landing, execute precise strikes, and then return home safely. In other words, there is effectively no such thing as out of range when it comes to U.S. strike capability. If the United States chose to bomb China in response to an invasion of Taiwan, distance alone would not protect it. China's only real defense would be its air defense systems, but those could already be compromised by the same strategy the United States used in Iran, disabling an opponent's ability to see and coordinate. China does have a potential response under development in the form of the Xian H-20 stealth bomber. This aircraft is intended to rival America's most advanced stealth bombers. However, according to Aerospace Global News, the program largely disappeared from public view in 2025, and it may still be several years before the bomber becomes operational. And even if it were ready today, the problem remains the same. The United States has already proven what its stealth bombers can accomplish in real combat conditions. China's comparable capabilities remain largely theoretical. That leaves Xi facing an uncomfortable reality. He knows the United States possesses long-range stealth strike power, but he cannot yet be certain that China can match it. And, in many ways, the situation becomes even more troubling from there. So far, the United States has demonstrated that it can disable an opponent's surveillance and command networks, strike thousands of targets in just a matter of days, and deploy stealth bombers capable of reaching almost any location on Earth. However, there is an even deeper and more existential danger facing Xi Jinping as a result of what the United States has done in Iran. something briefly referenced earlier in the video. Ali Khamenei is dead, and that development fundamentally alters the way she must think about any potential conflict that might draw the United States into the fight.